everybody, it's Christina. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing two cards. They are going to be super simple in style or design, but we're going to have a little bit of fun putting them together. We're going to be doing a stenciled background as well as some coloring with my Olo markers. I'm going to start off doing the background, so I'm just going to take a piece of 80-pound cardstock, put that down onto my photopolymer mat here that'll hold my cardstock in place. And then I'm going to bring in a stencil. Just going to make sure that stencil is nice and stuck down to the photopolymer so that it doesn't move around. And we are going to start off with using some ink. I'm just going to use one ink for this one, and then my other background I'm going to use a couple of different colors. So for this one we're going to use some Concord and 9th Tidepool. I'm going to start blending in the corner, and we're going to work our way to the top up here, and I'm doing it at an angle because as I go further up I'm going to get a little bit lighter with the colors. I'm going to do the darker color down here and the lighter color up at the top. So we're just going to start coming right in with our darker application of our ink, and I'm just blending that in and adding more ink to my brush as I go. And then as I get further up I will dab some ink off before I bring my brush to my stencil. All right, so that should be pretty good. I'm just gonna grab my knife here to pick up my stencil and pull that off. And I like how the darker blends into the lighter at the angle. I think that's so pretty. We're gonna set this aside and let our colors blend, because as it dries, the colors will get a little bit lighter. So we'll have that one set aside. And now we're going to clean off our stencil. I'm gonna move my photopolymer mat here, and I'm gonna clean off my stencil. And for that, I'm just going to use some, before I spray, let's put the lid on our ink and get as much stuff out of the way so I don't make a mess. I'm just going to use some rubbing alcohol and a piece of paper toweling to clean this off. We'll bring in my photopolymer mat one more time, and we have our piece of cardstock. We'll put our stencil back in place. I'm going to be using Tidepool, Guava, and Melon. So for the first one, I'm going to start with the Guava. And I'm going to do the Guava at the top, the Melon in the middle, and then the Tidepool, which is the Simon Says Stamp Tidepool. I'm going to start with the Melon at the top. We're going to do nice heavier color at the top, and as we blend down into the area where I'm going to be bringing in the Melon color, I'm just going to go a little bit lighter. And then we'll bring in Melon for our next color. And as I'm blending, I'm overlapping a little bit on the lighter color of the Guava. And then we're going to use Tidepool, which I'm just using the same blender brush I used for my first Tidepool, but this is Tidepool with Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit because it's a different shade of blue. And we're going to come in with our Tidepool of the Simon Says Stamp color. Again, I'm just blending up into the Melon color. And that, when they combine, they kind of make a green tone, which is really pretty. I'm going to pull my stencil up, and then we get left with this really pretty background. I already have the stamps pulled out that I'm going to be using, so I'm going to set that onto some Express It cardstock, which is perfect for working with any type of alcohol markers. And I have 2 sentiments and 3 bunny rabbits that we are going to be using. I love this sentiment. It says, I carrot About You, which I think is just the cutest. And then we have the big carrot that's in that stamp set. And then I have one more of the little bunnies that are in this stamp set. So cute. So let's get these set up so that I'm not wasting too much of my cardstock. I could save some of this for another time. I'm going to go ahead and close my cover. And we'll pick up our stamps. If you're curious, that's the stamp set I'm using. It's got some cute, adorable designs in it for Easter, which is really adorable. Since I'm going to be using alcohol markers, I'm going to use some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and we're going to go ahead and ink up our stamps. Give a really good impression there. And that's pretty good. I don't even need to do a second coat, but you know what? Let's just second coat just for fun. Get a nice crisp dark line. Got ink on my nail. There you go. Very pretty. I'm going to be coloring with my Olo markers, and I will put up on the screen the colors that I'm using in case you're interested, but I'll also have them linked in the description down below. And I am practicing my coloring this year, so I am not going to explain how I do my coloring. I'm just going to color, and we'll play some music, and you guys can enjoy the coloring. And I'll try not to get my hand in the way, since I have a tendency to do that. So with our bunny rabbits, I just used the warm gray, and I did not go back in and do anything with those. I just kind of let them be because they will blend in with the paper. I added some pink to the ears, gave some rosy cheeks, had a little struggle with the blending of our carrot, and I went out of the lines quite a bit, but a white gel pen to the rescue. I didn't have to recolor that one, and then of course I have my little flower. I'm going to do some die cutting of some colored cardstock. I have a pretty orange and pink color, and I'm going to die cut that using the largest die from my layers, A2 layers, which yes is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which is an A2 size card, but I like to die cut that piece rather than use my paper trimmer because I feel like I just get a nice smoother edge. So that is the only reason why I'm using those dies. I just like the smoothness of the edge. I'll do the same thing with our pink cardstock. And then while I have my layers dies out, I'm going to put back my large one and grab the next size down. And then we'll bring in our stencil pieces that we just got done stenciling. So I'm going to start with this one, and then we'll bring our die in, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut both of these. And then for these, I also want to add just a little bit more. I love the blending of the different colors, but I feel like it would have a nice touch if we used one of our cover plates. So I'm going to take this cut piece and adhere it down to this cover plate, which is going to etch a sketch or etch into the cardstock. And I'm just making sure that's on nice and straight, putting some tape down. Just be careful you don't run your fingers over that die plate or that over the die plate, because you will probably cut your fingers. I'm going to flip this upside down, which is the way I cut. And then we'll run this through a machine. I'm going to do the same thing for this one as well. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. And I just love that extra little detail it gives to that stencil piece. Isn't that pretty? You do the same thing with this one right here. I'm going to put it in place. And the only reason why I'm doing this after I've done my cutting of my rectangle is to keep it so that it doesn't get smushed running through the machine. If I had done the plate first and then cut the smaller rectangle, you take chances of kind of smushing the design and it doesn't pop as much. So that's the only reason why I did that. I'm going to run this through. I have the coordinating dies for these stamps, and I am going to tape them down, even though I'm using my magnet for the plate here, only because after doing that coloring, I don't want to take any chances of my dies slipping and then having to do the coloring again. So I am getting them all taped into place, and then we'll run them through our die cutter. I'm going to take my dies and die cut them also onto some 110-pound cardstock, because the Express cardstock is pretty thin. So I want to have a little bit of thickness to this. So I'm only going to just cut it once. I'm not going to cut a couple layers, but at least get it so that they have a little bit more support. So we'll get that run through the machine as well. So before I do anything else, I am going to cut the tape off the edges of these pieces of cardstock here, just so they are all set. I could tear the tape off, but I don't want to take any chances that we're going to rip apart any of this panel, because I really love how these turned out. I'm going to start layering these using some liquid glue. So I'm just going to grab my tweezers, add some glue, and then we could start layering these together. Now I left my top open on my glue, so hopefully it'll spread okay, which seems to be okay. Just going to layer these up. And that just adds a little bit more like sturdiness to our colored images here. And do the same thing for all of the rest of these. I'm going to glue them together and get them all ready to go. I just added some liquid glue to the back of my colored cardstock, or my solid colored cardstock. I'm going to adhere those to an A2 size card. It's a top folding card, which is a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card. And I like to kind of line them up and stand them in front of each other. Just helps line things up a little bit better. And it looks like my card panel might be just a little off. So I may have to do a little trimming of this, but that is okay. I can never seem to get my card panels to be perfect. But there is our first card panel, and I'll trim that down before I start putting my card together. I'm going to do the same thing for this pink cardstock, and I add my liquid adhesive to the back and then line that up onto my card front and put that all together. I have some foam tape on the back of my panel here, and I am going to adhere this down to my card base, trying to get it as center as possible, because I risked it and did not put liquid adhesive on the back so that if I needed to move things around, I could. But this one will make sure we do that. So I'm just going to peel the backing off of these. If you ever have a hard time getting backing off of foam tape or anything like that, just grab something sharp like your craft knife, or if you have a paper piercer, you can grab that as well. For this one, I am going to not risk it and add some liquid glue. And I wanted the lighter in the top corner, so I am going to go ahead and center that onto my card base. And if I need to adjust things a little bit, I can, because I have that liquid glue down there. I really risked it with the other one. I was living on the edge with that other one. So now I have 2 card bases, and we can go ahead and start putting these together. I have this little carrot, which I think I'm going to use on this one right here, because I thought the carrot would look nice with that more of that melon color in the background. And then I have my 2 bunny rabbits, which I think I'm going to make that they're holding the carrot. And then this little bunny here is just going to go right into the center with this little flower next to it. And then both of them will have a sentiment underneath. So let's put this together. I'm going to grab my tweezers because I find that the easiest for grabbing my pieces. I'm going to put the carrot right here in the center, which it looks to me to be the center. Looks pretty good. And then our 2 bunnies will go on either side of our carrot. So I got one on this side, and then one on the other side. I'm just going to take my acrylic block and put that on top of there while they're drying. And while those are drying, I'll come over to my other card, and we can go ahead and put our bunny rabbit down on this one along with the little flower. He's going to go right there, and then we'll add our little flower. I'm going to set the flower right next to him. And then for this one, I'm going to do the I'm so happy for you, or so happy for you is what it says. That one's just going to go right underneath. Making sure we're pretty center on this one. You bring my block over, set that on top, let that dry, and then I can bring in my other card and we can put our sentiment underneath this one as well. I love the I carrot for you. That is so stinking cute. Make sure that's nice and straight, and then I'll just add another block on the top of that one and let that dry. And the last thing I want to do is I have these little kind of frosted moonstone, I think is what they're called, gems. I'm going to add those to my card front. So I'm going to start with this one. I have them already laid out. I'm just going to pick them up with my picker upper tool, add some glue, and put them into place. So there's one there, got one there, one right here. And then we'll do the same thing with this one. And I kind of have them laid out the same as well. So I'll put one right there and there. Oops, you moved. And then we'll add one right about here, just like so. Well, these are super simple cards, and I love just stepping up that stencil background by adding a texture plate. Made it a lot more detailed to it, even though it's a very simple card. Thanks everybody for stopping by. As always, the supplies for today's video are linked below in the description down below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!